So we're talking again with Kavita Krishnan, who is in India, a longtime socialist and a fighter for women's rights and for democratic rights for all. And a couple years ago, Kavita showed the unfortunately unusual qualities of great courage and integrity by breaking from her former comrades over exactly those issues, especially in regards to China and to Russia. And so today we're going to be talking about the recent election results in India. First, I want to, maybe you could just start, Kavita, for those that aren't that familiar with Indian politics, to just explain what Modi stands for and what is Hindutva.
Right. So I should just really briefly say that it's about Indian, within the Indian freedom struggle, sort of parallel to it, and in parts entwined with it was a tendency towards Hindu nationalism. But the most extreme variant of that was those who almost kept themselves separate from the freedom struggle against the British. And one of the major organizations is the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which was a sort of semi-paramilitary and ideological organization, which was founded in 1925. So it's going on about a century. So they are the parent party of Modi's party, which is the BJP, and Modi himself is primarily a member of the RSS, as are his closest aides, closest people. So this is an organization that has, for the initial decades of post-colonial India did not have much success. But since the 90s, since 1990, their success has increased. One of the major points at which, and that's significant to this election, is 1992, when they led a long sort of campaign, anti-Muslim campaign all over the country, which culminated in the demolition of a 16th century mosque in a North Indian town of which is called Ayodhya. And because they claimed it was the birthplace, that the mosque stood on a temple, which was marking the birthplace of a Hindu god, Ram. So they demolished that temple, and just recently the Supreme Court gave them permission to build a temple on the mosque. They demolished the mosque, and now they've been able to. So that was a big sort of success story for Modi. So Modi represents, in the past 10 years, a never, sort of unprecedented level of success for Hindu national politics, and a much, so he has the RSS, which is extremely organized and has, I think it's difficult, when you think about, say, Trump or someone. I think the nature of the RSS organization is even more important than Modi himself, because that is an organization that is, very, 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 it has its tentacles everywhere. So in every kind of social gathering, every kind of, even if it's a relief work, even if it is, say, public health, public cleaning, you name it, any kind of social, tendency, the RSS will be there. So it's not just it's not just religion. So Modi in the past 10 years, and Modi and Shah, he was Gujarat chief minister, and he represents this Hindu supremacist success story. And he has built himself, so basically what has helped him is he's had 100%, all the television media has been with him for all purposes, and what little remained, he has gotten them pushed out. So basically he has television as his propagandists in English and Hindi, really, really big time. And they helped to build him up as this really sort of messianic leader. He's a great leader. He's going to lead the country towards development. The Congress and the other parties who've ruled in India, they've done nothing. And this is the first time that, India is stepping into the global stage. It's getting recognition. So that's been his thing. But 10 years has meant a steep escalation in attacks on Muslims, in the attempted disenfranchisement of Muslims, um, state violence, not only against Muslims, but against interfaith couples, and finally, even legal measures to try and, uh, demand that interfaith couples, or even live in, if you want to live in with someone, just share a room with someone. If you're a man and a woman and you want to live together, whether as a long-term couple or you're just spending time together, you have to take permission from the state. This has happened in state government, in two of the states where BJP has government, but these are states where these are the sort of laboratory states. They try them there and then they replicate them elsewhere, and it eventually becomes national law. So these were some of the things that were happening. And essentially, I mean, I would have said before the election, and I'll still say it now, that we are not waiting for a Hindu nation. We are already in the Hindu nation. The point is how we are already far ahead in it. The only thing is, can we pump the brakes on it and turn it around? And that seemed immensely difficult, but now there's a small chance. I should mention one other little thing, which is big thing actually. So apart from all the media, Modi has monopolized money. So he has the support of the biggest oligarchs. So these are Adani and Ambani. These are the two biggest oligarchs. They are from the same state that Modi is. Adani's own rise has paralleled Modi's political rise. And so there's a tremendous, sort of crony relationship. And these are also, you know, so they funded him a lot. And quite apart from that, he has, managed to create a system of extorting funding. So if you don't fund him, then he will send, anti-corruption cases against you, anti-corruption agencies against you. Likewise for politics, opposition leaders of any kind, you will have, the anti-corruption people after you. If you join the BJP, these cases vanish miraculously. So if you are an opposition leader, you have to be willing to face the possibility of being in prison, arbitrarily in prison for indefinite kinds of time. Likewise, for civil liberties activists, human rights activists, that's all become the new normal. So that's the background. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, there's big differences, but I see some similarities between Modi and Trump here and Putin in Russia.
Right. You're right. You're right.
And so there were recent elections in India, which were a real setback for Modi. Can you talk about the outcome of those elections and
right,
and why they happened the way they did?
Yes. So I will. I think, I've already set the, the kind of the why these elections were so important, and, so many of us were so invested in, somehow ensuring that these people they didn't they didn't replicate their, 2019, they sweep, landslide, and even more importantly, that they didn't exceed that landslide. So they started the election with saying, we are going to exceed it. And all the media was saying it. So last time they got, to form a majority in out of 543 seats, you need to get 270 plus, you have to cross that 270 limit. So last time they got 303 seats on their own, the Modi's own party. And then with his allies, it was 372. So this time they were saying that with our allies, we are going to cross 400. And that was the main slogan for a long time before the elections. The opposition this time had managed to get its house in as much order as possible, far better than last time. So they had formed an alliance, which the acronym is India. They chose that acronym quite deliberately, and so it was a larger coalition. Not all opposition parties were part of it, but it did include several significant, including left formations, but also significant state regional formations. So the opposition was campaigning. It was, the campaign in a sense took off not just on jobs and high prices, which were the sort of big issues here. Joblessness is at an, so the rate of unemployment in India right now is said to be, sort of the worst in 45 years. So it's really bad. But it began with a sort of a march, I don't know how you'd say it. So you're walking, essentially, it's called a yatra. So you're walking. So Rahul Gandhi is the main opposition leader. He led this walk. And in a sense, he called the walk Bharat Jodo, which means, connect India. It isn't so much unite, but it means that, bring people together. So the idea was that these people are breaking it up, they're dividing. So, in a sense, his campaign was more about meeting people, talking to them, of people of different faiths, different communities, meeting them, talking with them, having a meal. So, in a way, it didn't look that political, but it did open the doors in a big way, I would say. And since then, that coalition kind of gained momentum. Modi had this absolute monopoly, and he had managed to build this temple. So, January 18th, I think it was, when they built the temple. And that day, it was sometime around that date, January. And I can tell you that the few days after that, that felt terrifying. Everywhere there were saffron flags, the flags, which said the name of the temple, and the slogan that has also become and fascist slogan. So it's a religious slogan. It says Jai Shri Ram, victory to Ram, but it has become into a sort of war cry against Muslims and so on. So that was everywhere. January 26th is India's Republic Day. You couldn't see, India's flags. You just saw this saffron everywhere. And so it was, I think people were very, very trying very hard to keep hope up, but feeling quite bad. But I think as the election began, we could realize almost immediately, as we began campaigning properly, that something had shifted, that you didn't face this kind of complete, devotion for Modi, and you didn't face as much pushback, that their own people were sounding defensive and, giving defensive arguments and so on. So it was very clear that something had shaken up. It wasn't quite the same. And so I think what has happened is that then he realized too that that was happening. So what Modi has done was to start making these appallingly, I mean, it's beyond dog whistles. He began making speeches which were really explicit, saying, and he began responding and reacting to the Congress manifesto and the India Alliance promises. So that he never does. He has never done that. Okay, so since 2001, when he was Gujarat Chief Minister, he's never had to respond to an opposition agenda in any serious way. He has mocked the opposition. He has said that they are, they're corrupt, they are idiots, but he has not had to respond to a specific. So the Congress manifesto put out some kind of redistributive, welfare policies, which said explicitly that, we need to ensure that everyone gets, that inequality is addressed. So he took that up and he said that what they're going to do is he began telling Hindus they're going to take everything from you. They're going to take your property, your wealth, your gold, even your wife's, the sacred thread that a Hindu woman wears, the gold chain. They're going to take that from her neck. They're going to take away your buffaloes, your cows, and they're going to give it all to the Muslims. So he said this, and it was absurd, but it was also a desperate move, I think, around that time that he began making these speeches. And I think at that time also it became clear that he's falling back on his, on what he's counted on throughout as being the last ditch, So his development claims and promises, he practically abandoned those and he just stuck to this throughout the election. And at the end of it, in spite of all the hype, they'll they they've made some important gains, by the way. But the big losses were in two of the largest states. That is Uttar Pradesh, which is easily the largest state in India with a very large number of seats, and in Maharashtra, where Bombay is, so Maharashtra. So in those two states, there was an unexpected setback. So in UP, especially, it was painful because UP was the seat where they won uh, all but one seat last time in 2019. And that is where this Ram temple was constructed. And the best, most joyful thing was that exactly that in the constituency where they constructed that temple, they were voted out. So, it's like, it is that very place where they built that temple as a symbol of Hindu triumph. That we are here, we are now, rulers of India, and this is in a sense a declaration of Modi's ultimate triumph. It's just too delicious that he was defeated there. And I think the factors were many. So the factors were that they couldn't address the this issue of joblessness in any positive, creative way, and the other thing was that in social segments they had lost a support that they had gained, which was among the lower castes and so on. The opposition made a far greater effort, and they could wean away people from the more oppressed castes, substantial section of them towards them. And I think that was the crucial, sort of important thing there, which was the big factor. In Maharashtra, the factor was they had stolen the government, basically. So the government elected in the state had been an opposition government, but the BJP bought MLAs away and broke the ruling party. And, so they then formed government, but people were quite upset with that. And they then voted, that clearly they voted against the BJP. So these were the two big setbacks. And so Modi has now got, the BJP got 240 seats, which is way less than, the 270 you need to be. So he is the, BJP is the single largest party. So he's formed government with allies. But he's, for the first time in his political life, he's having to negotiate with, allies. Some of them have one seat, two seats, and a couple of them are allies with bigger seats, and they are throwing their weight around. They are making all kinds of statements, and so the very fact, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Modi and his Lieutenant Shah actually deal with a situation which is quite unprecedented for them, needing to negotiate with people, and rather than because they have been a complete total control, centralization, and secrecy. This has been Modi's government in Gujarat as well as here. It's just him and this other guy, Shah. So, they've committed all kinds of crimes. Shah has been charged with murder, acquitted in, very dubious ways. So these are really dangerous people. And now they are suddenly finding that their control over the state machinery and over ministries, over decisions, all this is going to be, it's going to be run very differently now. And it's unclear how they will cope with that.
So you said that in the course of the campaign, it was clear that something had shifted. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What, in your opinion,
Yes.
had shifted, and in your opinion, did it have to do with the economy, or was it other things also?
I think the economy was definitely a very important factor, but I'll tell you that the economic situation was maybe worse in 2019. I mean, it was really bad in 2019 because, that came after Modi had demonetized, he had gotten rid of certain currency notes that had created economic chaos, absolutely. Then he had applied this new tax, which affected the taxpayer, even even someone who goes to buy a bar of soap would be paying a bigger tax to the central government. So these were things that had made things extremely difficult. Um, COVID lockdown, of course, after 2020, things were very bad as well. But throughout all that, if you look at the Uttar Pradesh, the state I was talking about, UP, the biggest state, so they had state elections after COVID, and they uh, they did fine. The BJP did extremely well. So it did not look as though that brand had been affected in that sense at all over there. They did lose some states, I mean, in the south, but in Karnataka, for instance, where they held government. But it didn't look like that was happening in North India at all. So I think the economic situation, when it was at its worst, so 2019, it was bad. After the lockdown, COVID lockdown, it was terrible. And Modi still appeared, uh, he was called, Teflon Modi, but you can't seem to make a dent. He somehow managed to keep himself aloof from that, from the COVID deaths, from all of that. So I wouldn't say it was only economic, but what was it? I think the question which we need to think about a little bit more, and I don't have all the answers, is what allowed people to begin to, create room in their heads and their lives to think about economic issues and expecting an answer from Modi. So I think that is what really is the question. And that is where I think that the assumption that they had control over Hindu voters to the extent that they claimed, that was belied in this election. It doesn't mean that Hindu voters completely voted against his divisive agenda. I think it's more that the divisive agenda couldn't wean them, couldn't draw them in, or couldn't keep them from leaving. It's more like that. And that could be a combination of many things. One is that there is an arrogance and a tiredness, combination of that in Modi. So the sheer arrogance of saying um, we're going to have an India. So he would say Congress Mukt Bharat, which means a India that's free of the Congress. Now the Congress is the main opposition party. So if you're saying Congress free, you're basically saying opposition free. And then you are showing that you have, he created this electoral bonds thing. So it showed that, most of electoral funding, the lion's share was all going secretly to the BJP. You didn't know who was funding it, but it was very clear that he would send corruption cases after people who wouldn't fund him, cases which would disappear. All these things, and the fact he arrested, just before the election, he arrested two state chief ministers. They were in prison till just before the elections. So I think those things basically sent an uneasiness. Even that Ram temple celebration. I'll give you some examples. I think maybe that would make things clearer. So I spoke, to some students, some young students in Delhi who are from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, so North Indian states. And these were, young students, first year, just after school, not got the kind of schooling they deserve. So it's a weaker schooling, um, and they were devout, they were practicing Hindus. So the day I happened to meet them was they said, oh, we can't eat anything because we are on a fast. It was a religious fast day of Hindus. And their instinct, they knew nothing about the mosque having been demolished. They didn't even know what happened then, 1992. But their first instinctive reaction to that whole temple thing was that they didn't like it. they said, temple is temple, but why is this man making it about himself? Why are we being forced to watch it on big screens in our colleges? Why are colleges being made and schools being made to, show this live? Why are all the channels screening this live? So it was just and very interestingly, by the way, these same fellows, Hindu boys, instinctive reaction on Palestine. Instinctive, completely instinctive. I mean, they did not know anything about the history, but they said, we think, we'd like to know more because it's quite horrible what's happening. And and then others I spoke, Delhi, and, they won Delhi, they won all the seats in spite of the chief minister being arrested here. That's something shouldn't have happened. I'm not sure exactly what has gone wrong there. But people I spoke to in Delhi, people I spoke to I visited even Gujarat, which is his own state. I visited a constituency which they were bound to win. But even there, I could make out that young people we spoke to, young Hindu men, they, that thrall of Modi's and of the whole anti-Muslim thing seemed broken. When I would ask about it, they said, yes, apparently Muslims were really bad and things were set right. Modi set them right. So I said, what was bad? They said, well, we don't know. Our parents tell us this. So I would say, well, are things bad? So I said, what kind of bad, to one of them? So he thought about it and he said, well, I heard that, they would, misbehave with women, or they would be violent. So then I mentioned two instances, pretty recent, including a candidate, BJP ally candidate in the South, who's been accused of, hundreds of complaints of women against him of sexual violence. So I said, okay, this guy, have you heard of him? So he said, yeah, vaguely. So I said, yes, but had he been Muslim? And have 400 complaints against him of sexual violence. That, suddenly you could just see the light sort of, like a switching on in his. He said, yeah, that's true. So I said, yes. So imagine. So the point is that there's people doing things in all communities, but the ability to say that in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, without facing a blowback, without, facing an aggressive reaction, that was new, and I felt that. And others in Delhi, for instance, a lot of people I spoke to, including some people who were BJP voters. So they tried to persuade me, saying, "Oh, you should vote BJP. And if Modi doesn't win, then the country will collapse. Things will, all that he's done will just be destroyed." So, but when I said, I wouldn't even say, "Look, don't vote." I said, "Well, why vote? He's had 2 terms." I said, let him earn his vote next term. No, this term, I said, he has now monopolized all money, all media, all police, all the agencies. And you can see that he's, you're corrupt if he says you are, but if you join his party, you're not. So how does this work? So I said, shouldn't be 100% with one guy. You may be a BJP voter, but he won't have to listen to you if he has 400 plus seats. Why does he need you? He will do exactly what he likes. This thing struck a chord with a lot of people who were not, complete. So they were like, yes. So the word in Hindi, manmani, I'll do what I like. So in a sense, an author, the arrogance and um, non-accountability, that I don't need to listen to anyone, I can do what I like and without giving an answer. That actually hit a chord with a lot of people. After he lost, where I live, there is someone who is he's a guard in one of the colonies, so he's security guards. It's minimum wage or less. So, and he lives in a village, sort of urban village close by. So he hadn't really opened his cards when the elections were on. But after the results were out, he was just totally joyous, And he's from UP. His vote was not in Delhi. His vote was in UP, which he couldn't vote there. His family voted. He couldn't go. He was just totally thrilled, and he was, and loudly. Otherwise, he would, people who speak against Modi would speak in hushed whispers. So he was just loud, and this is the word he used. He said now he won't be able to do manmani. There's some balance, you know. He can't just do whatever he likes and be unaccountable. So I think that is the big change in people's minds. But that said, I think, the BJP increased its vote share in Tamil Nadu, which is one of the states. I've always maintained that Tamil Nadu is too complacent and too arrogant to say, oh, BJP won't come in here because we are anti-Hindi. We are Tamil identity is too strong, and we don't want a national party. We don't want a Hindi-speaking party. But they increased their vote share in a very significant way in Tamil Nadu. They have won. They won. In Telangana, which is in southern states, they have much more seats. In Kerala, 2 seats, Telangana, Andhra. So they have won much more seats in the south, and um, in Odisha, which is a big state on the one of the very important states, eastern states. He won a complete landslide. BJP won all the seats and the state government as well as central government. So these are important things to remember. It isn't all good, but definitely I think the feeling of complete suffocation and the atmosphere of fear that had descended, complete impunity that had descended, I think that has lifted. So people will be more confident about protesting, about being able to protest. And these people will have a less easy time of it, I think. So it'll be interesting at all rates. The opposition is alive. They've shown they aren't dead. So